Welcome back. We have started fertilizing with our strip tillers. I'm filling up right now, loading up the tanks, but we'll jump right into it. Where we're applying this is each row's got what we call red ball indicators. They actually have silver balls in them right now. A lot of ball talk. Depending on how much product you're putting on, you put different balls in there. What it's coming through, it comes down these hoses down here, and then we split it out, and then we shoot it in right behind these coulters. Typically with strip tillers, you'll have a shank in the center instead of these wavy coulters. These are more of a shallow tillage attachment, and so we apply it a little differently. We put it on both sides, and as this is kind of flowing dirt, it kind of mixes in with the dirt, and that's kind of where we place our fertilizer. The only problem with fertilizer is it usually is hard on bearings. It's just a thing. There's a lot of acidity in it, so you just kind of deal with it. But we also put on different ranging of rates. Sometimes we'll go into dry land and we'll need to put a lower rate. Well, you usually can't do that a wide range with a single orifice. Once again, we're using what we call orifice tubes. It's these little guys. It's 8 foot of a certain diameter tube, and that's what causes the restriction. Usually you have a little disc with a little pinhole. Well, these tubes allow bigger chunks of contaminants to flow through, which you always get, and it's a little bit better system than the old orifice tube or the orifice disc, in our opinion. But what this does is it allows us to use different two types of hoses. So if we get to a really low rate, this will automatically shift them to the smaller tubes. Say we want to go to a 10-gallon rate versus a 50-gallon rate, we can actually do that with this. You just kind of send the outfit what you want to do, and then they kind of give you a couple different hoses, and it can go through one hose, two hoses, one on the bigger hose, so it's got a couple different options. It's a really nice tool to have if you want to really range your rates with the strip tiller. Right now I need to kind of go equalize the tanks out. When I'm filling, my left side tends to fill faster. You can see a little lower on my right side. Yeah, fertilizer isn't always clean, especially in the hills. You get a little splash over. I'm not a fan of fertilizer. I don't think anybody is. It's sticky, and man, it makes your corn grow. Brother Tom's coming down the hill. He beat me. We're on our 300-acre pivot. This is the one where we had, for those of you kind of been with me for a while, we had the cover crop on this quarter. Those beans last year did really well. But the reason why we're strip tilling it, well, I better watch this. I forgot my gloves. I usually do this with gloves. We usually bleed the airline out. It's just when I've been bleeding it out in the past years, it creates an airlock in my tanks, and I usually get one tank that'll drain earlier if I do that, so I haven't been blowing it out, and I haven't had that issue. For those of you farmers may know, because the hoses go up and over and back up and over to each side, and they kind of connect in the T. Well, sometimes when you blow that airline out, it creates an airlock in one tank, and then you'll get one tank that'll drain out. So if you're wondering why I spilled a little bit, it's because I'm not blowing the airline out with the air supplied by the truck. Let's get in the cab. Tom's over there. I'm going to start on the other side. I haven't actually been out here yet. I had some other things to do. But the nice thing with today's technology is I could already see where he's been. This is called machine sync. Yeah, that's what it's called. It shares my his data with me, and that way I can see where he's been. He also made a new AB line. That's where I was kind of talking before I got interrupted by finishing filling my tanks. But when we had our 24 row planter pull type, it worked better to go at this angle. Well, this year, since it's beans, we want to switch the angle. That's actually why we're out here strip tilling, just so it makes a smoother seedbed. We're actually switching the row angle up a little bit, just so it flows up and down these hills a little better. The reason why we went this way is because the 24 worked better. but since we got these mounted planters, we're actually able to go back the other way, which, I don't know. It's just a farmer thing. You kind of, the way it contours and everything like that. So that's kind of why we're doing this. Plus we're putting a little fertilizer on. Also this pivot gets some effluent too, so we're not having to put near as much fertilizer on. So we should be able to go a little further on our tanks. So we're just doing a flat rate, so I'm able to come back off of our other rates and type in 20 right here. Turn my pump on for the first time today. Click my main master switch on. Is a floor switch. I actually have a height switch down there on the one of the parallel arms that actually automatically turns on and off the fertilizer, so when I let it down it'll kick in. I think we're ready to go. Better make sure my closer. Okay, so my pump's having a little bit of trouble trying to find its groove. So I'm gonna mess with it a little bit here. Okay, by lowering this front number, what I did is it slows down that valve up there so it ain't trying to hunt so much, so we'll see if that fixes it. It's just kind of a calibration for that pump. Let's see if it works. For some reason my auto track didn't kick back in. Now it's a little better. Gotta do. Gotta do pivot stuff. Good. I'm gonna turn the well on. Set her about 70%. That isn't correct, it's 480. I'm not sure what to do with it. She be moving. Last video. So for those of you new to the channel, or new to irrigation with pivots, what I did there is I got to start the pivot. I make a pass along one side of it in the center, and then I start moving it so it'll start walking over the area where we've completed, so it gets out of the way so we're able to complete the whole field. So from here on out you'll kind of see that happen in some of my next upcoming videos.
Resistant Western Corn River yet, but you're seeing that in Indiana and Illinois. First, who decides that?
So sorry for holding out on you guys. We moved the truck around, we started on another field. We're gonna get started on another field. Tom's still at the old field finishing up on the ends. I'm gonna get started here on this cornfield, so strip till continues. And it's getting warmer out. So I'm gonna come in here, switch my field over. And then on this field, we actually are going to do a prescription. It's not a fancy prescription, it's just on the borders or on the dry land. We like to cut the rate down where it's not irrigated because the yield potential just isn't there. So instead of me trying to remember each time I get to a dry land corner to knock down the rate, it's easier to have it automatically done. So I'm gonna hit save there, and our plan is changing on this one. I'm going to go to a tank mix, and it's going to be our strip till blend. And I have that all pre-configured in there. And as you can see, there's already green background in here, and that's just showing us where the planned rate is for the prescription of that area. That way it kind of tells you what it's going to be. It will highlight it when we come up here. But I also need to come into here and set this over to map based so it knows to run off the prescription instead of just a set standard rate. So I'm going to clear out of that, set my plant to, well, it's already set to the track I want, and we are ready to rock and fire. I'm going to go start at the pivot point again and near it, and we're off into the corn stalks. Well, I'm done around here. Let's get out and see what kind of job we're doing. So this is kind of the before what we're looking at. For those of you new, we got stock rolls on our corn head that grind up our stalks a little bit more than just a typical snapping roll. So they're a little finer ground up. I'll tell you why that's a little bit important here in a sec, but let's see how we're doing here. Oh yeah, it's a nice looking strip. And there's good moisture there, so, but it's still, it'll dry out a little bit. That'll make a nice little seed bed for the corn. So yeah, I think we're accomplishing what we're wanting to do. We're tilling that top a little bit, making a nice seed bed, kind of like we were doing on the last video for the beans. Kind of see some of that fertilizer. So I kind of want to mention Hawkins again. I'm running these floating row cleaners, and I'm really starting to like them. It's just consistent. They work well. When I pull into a field, I usually don't worry about having to set anything. Now they come in, say if you had a lot heavier residue in your kind of conditions, they have weights that will go on back. That'll help you out, get in there a little bit more aggressive if you need them to be. And usually it's kind of a farm-wide thing. That's kind of what I'm talking about here is typically for us, I don't need that extra weight, but if you have something with a higher residue, or you typically have higher residue, you might want to put on those weights. And they also have something we might look at for our farm for next year is they have a different kind of basket design on the back here, which looks like you can replace these bearings easier on them. And they also have an airbag here that you can control the down pressure on these a little bit more accurately than just these springs. The reason why, if you're running the shank, the reason why you might want a little bit more air downforce is to kind of push that back down, because if you're running the shank, you might be lifting that up a little bit more. And to reduce the air pockets, you kind of want to be pushing that back down so you don't create air pockets that your seed could get in trouble with, especially in the springtime. Usually if you do it before winter, it'll work its way back down, dirt will settle, but if you're doing it right before planting, sometimes those shanks will create those air pockets, and you want to make sure that yeah, just kind of another look at what these Hawkins floating deals look like. Like I said from the last video, these are renewed for this year. They came out, they put them on, they took care of us, and so I have no complaints there, and so far they're working really great. On Tom's set, if he ever puts them on, we got a set with a shark tooth opener, and so we were going to try that out if we ever get time. I don't know if we'll get around to it this year or not, but it's something we'll look at for next year for sure. Because if we keep rolling, we're gonna hate to stop. A little bit of a ditch we're going through here. I might float the wings up a little bit. So yeah, if you're ever interested in any of those Hawkins products that we got on, the floating row cleaners, well, they got a whole lineup of other great stuff. So in the information below, I'll give you some contact info if you're ever interested in getting a hold of those guys, seeing what they offer. And if you do call them, just mention that I sent you, so it might help me out a little bit. Oof. He's had his lights on for hours. That's better. But that'll be it for this video, folks. We will catch you on the next one. Bye.